educated and so forth and so on, the Rastafari of today. You understand? And yet, many of the youth don't know this. I have to repent to the King of Kings and His Christ for the falling short. Let's go now to the Colossians again, 3 and 10. 3 and 10. So we're returning to Colossians now. So we're seeing the context of Epi-Gnosis, of the Rastafari overstanding. In 3 and 10 it says, and have put on the new, the adis, so, or the new man, to put on the new man, which is renewed, which is what? Renewed in knowledge, which is renewed. So the putting on of the new man, of Rastafari, is to be renewed, become new again, born again in knowledge or overstanding after the image of Him that created him. So if we as Rastafari take on the name of His Imperial Majesty, then this verse applies to us according to the teaching of His Imperial Majesty and the word of His Christ and the early true Gnostic Hawaria, those who knew the correct and the precise, whether correct and precise overstanding of the good news, as we're learning now. So this verse also applies to Rastafari overstanding, Colossians chapter 3, verse 10, and have put on the new man, which is renewed in knowledge after the image of Him that created him, which is renewed in Epi-Gnosis, which is renewed in overstanding, which is renewed in precise and correct knowledge. Now let's move on to the next kat Epi-Gnosion in Romans 10 and 4. Let's go to Romans 10 and 4 for the next reference here, because see, when we study the word and when we study it in context of these references and we go through due diligence, this is what we call when we're doing Bible studies, to do due diligence. This means, as if you can follow along with what we have up there in this lecture, you see where it says that we dealt with a New Testament knowledge of ethical and divine things, dealt Philippians 1 and 9, Colossians 3 and 10. Then this was that kat Epi-Gnosion, and this is Romans, is Romans 10 and 2 with the genitive of the thing known. Then Colossians 1 and 9, which we dealt with, Colossians 2 and 2. Then we have Philemon 6 here. And then there's the Greek here, you understand, speaking about with knowledge, right there in the Greek. Now, it's not expected that each of us is going to know all these things, but once you know the basic abbreviations for the biblical verses that are cited under a particular key root word, it's very fundamental to your growth, to your being able to renew yourself in knowledge, to really study these things and to spend the time. We haven't gotten through even half of this just as of yet, but even in this process, many of y'all can then get a better context to such a word like overstanding, and how the verses here that are connected with this particular word overstanding deal with that first degree, or that first level, that birth, born again level of Rastafari, but according to the will of His Imperial Majesty, which is based on the true teaching of the Bible. Now 8 and 2, actually 10 and 2, which is the next quote. 10 and 2 says this from Romans. 10 and 2 says, for I bear them record that they have a zeal of God. So he's bearing record that his own Hebrew brothers and sisters who were not Noah's, Epi-Gnostics, you understand, but were still dealing with that ignorance of religionism and not dealing with the truth, the full and the precise and the correct knowledge. He's saying of his fellow Israelite brethren, he's saying, for I bear them record that they have a zeal. They were passionate for Jah. They are passionate for Rastafari. They are passionate for Yahweh. You understand? But what it says, but not according to what? Knowledge. That word knowledge right there, according to this study, is Epi-Gnosis, which means the precise and correct knowledge. They had knowledge, but it was not precise. It was not correct knowledge. That's another use right there. Now, if we will go once again to Colossians, we've been going back and forth to Colossians, because this is like a basic, this is like a first, like a born-again level for Rastafari, what we're studying right here. And it's very important that we try to do and to show the example to our brothers and sisters of doing due diligence. When we're going through such a study, don't just say take the first couple of definitions, but try to make the time and find the time to come back to, or come forward, you know, to come forward to really study these things in much more detail. So Colossians 2:2, speaking of the Godhead incarnate, the Melekot that's incarnate in Christos, in whom the Mitmenon is complete, is fulfilled. It says that their hearts might be comforted, being knit together in love, and to all riches in the full assurance of understanding, to the acknowledgement of the mystery of God and of the Father and of Christos. This is very, very important. In whom are hid all the treasuries of wisdom and knowledge, and the precise and the correct knowledge. Very, very important.